Welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to talk about a little bit of a different subject. We've talked a lot about collecting typewriters. That's not all you might want to do with typewriters. How about getting rid of typewriters? Let's talk about that, shall we? Stay tuned. What was it? Here's the date. November 14th, 2016. I have the original receipt. The Family Thrift Center, 1201B, Wantagh Boulevard in Albuquerque, New Mexico. I wandered into that store, and it's one of these thrift stores that has almost just all clothes. But in the very back of the store was a little section of kind of junky looking electronics, and I noticed this plastic case. And it's kind of hard to tell what this could have been. It could have been some funky old video game player or who knows what, right? Well, I saw the little nameplate here that said Facet, and that piqued my interest, and I pulled it out off the shelf and clicked it open, and this is what I found. A Facet 1620 typewriter. These are not especially rare typewriters. They're not heirlooms of rarity or anything like that, but they are infrequently found in the United States, or at least certainly in my part of the United States, in the desert Southwest here. A Facet 1620, not exactly common. The little sticker on the back of the machine says made in Sweden, so I've kind of always looked upon this, since I've had it, as my kind of the Volvo of typewriters maybe. Well, I've probably done a review of this machine a few years ago. I can't quite remember. I think I did. It has a lot of resemblances in my mind to kind of like an Olympia SM9, in the sense that, well, first of all, there is a carriage locking lever that's up here on the upper left corner above the bichrome lever, and that releases the carriage. That kind of reminds me of Olympia. Body panels are all cast alloy, and this is the ribbon cover that has the beautiful little Facet 1620 Modernist logo. What I love about it, because it is a cast piece of metal, I'll put it up to the microphone. You know, a cast piece of metal has a resonance to it that a stamped piece of sheet metal doesn't have. All the body panels are cast aluminum or cast alloy. You can see the molding marks on them. This machine was making some kind of a resonant bell-like ringing sound as I typed on it, and it was just the ribbon cover here was resonating against the metal frame, and so I put some little adhesive foam pieces in here to kind of dampen that vibration, and it worked pretty good. I've been using a blue ribbon in this machine for a few years, and it's worked pretty well for me. As far as the machine itself, one of the things I really love about it is the fact that the bearing race for the carriage, instead of being that flat piece of metal with the two bearing tracks, this is a cylindrical or tubular bearing race, and it is probably the smoothest carriage that I've ever seen on a typewriter of any kind. It's just absolutely smooth. So the bearings are in a circular arrangement inside this hollow tube. What a wonderful design. A lot of the haptics and feel of this typewriter resembles, in my experience, it resembles like an Olympia SM9 in terms of the way the keys feel. It's a very solid, mechanically well-built, precisely made typewriter, but the keys have that kind of later SM9 kind of feel to them. Not quite as firm and solid and snappy as like an SM3 or 4, but it sure reminds me of an Olympia in a lot of ways. It's a really good machine. Here's the thing. One of the members of our Albuquerque Typewriter Society was telling me that he's really liking my Facet 1620, and he was looking for one, and he discovered that these things just aren't readily available, at least locally, and certainly not in this kind of condition. This is really mint condition. I didn't really show you inside the plastic clamshell carrying case, but it has the original styrofoam packing for the carriage that goes on either side of the carriage, right? So it's really in pristine shape. And so because of that, this particular fellow was asking, hey, would you consider selling this typewriter? Getting rid of one of the better machines in my collection. Let's think about that, shall we? Well, not only on this channel, but on some of the Facebook typewriter groups and some of the blogs of typewriters, there's been a lot of discussion over the years about the merits of collecting typewriters and finding just the right typewriter, the right kind of make and model. What do you prefer? What's your favorite typewriters? Are there any holy grail typewriters that you still have to collect and all that? But very few people have really considered, what about getting rid of typewriters? Well, and I'm not talking necessarily about just getting rid of undesirable machines. I've probably gotten rid of several machines in my collection. Let me see. Smith Corona Cougar, a plastic British-made typewriter that just wasn't that good. It was like a later evolution of the Skywriter. I ended up getting rid of it. It was a good beginner's, maybe child's typewriter, but I didn't really like it. I got rid of the Smith Corona Sterling. Not a bad machine, but not as good as a Silent Super, perhaps. I got rid of a Silent, not because it was bad in any way, but because a school teacher up in Los Alamos, New Mexico wanted it for his classroom, so I sold it to him. I've gotten rid of a Corona 4 for no reason. Well, I wasn't using it that much, and I didn't enjoy using it because of the quality of the imprint. The letters were a little bit uneven, and so it was a hanger queen. It's a nice historic machine, but I wasn't using it. Someone else was going to get more enjoyment out of it. I sold it. Same thing with my Underwood Universal, the 1936 model that I had. Nothing wrong with it at all, but I wasn't using it that much. Somebody else really wanted it, and I saw the need. Spread the joy, spread the typewriter goodness around, right? There's probably a couple other machines that I'm missing. Oh yeah, there was an Olympia SM9, the 1970s squarish body style that was had the senatorial kind of square techno computer font. Didn't really like it that much. For the style of typeface, sold it to a guy for his daughter to use. And then I had a late model SM9 wide carriage machine that my wife's niece really wanted, and we sold it to her, or gave it to her actually. So I've gotten rid of a few machines over the years that were good machines. There's no reason to get rid of really any of these machines. I'd say maybe the Smith Corona Cougar was the only one worth getting rid of. Everything else was a keeper. This machine is a keeper, but I'm not keeping it. Why is that? So I live in a small, older house. I have to deal with the fact that I only have a limited amount of space. I have a family. I have to consider their needs, and I can only have so many typewriters. And so I have to consider the fact that I have more typewriters than I can actually practically use for writing. And that is just a fact. So these machines, especially something like this that is just absolutely pristine, what do you do with it? You leave it in the closet, you don't use it as much as you should, and the machine might end up suffering as a result in its mechanical condition. Or if you know somebody who's a typewriter lover and really loves this particular model, why not pass it on, spread the joy, you know, the typewriter goodness, right? Get somebody else enthused about typewriters. So the fellow that's interested in this typewriter, he's coming over to the house this evening to pick it up. And I really hope he enjoys this. I really hope he finds this machine to be that machine that he can just sit down at and create words on paper. Now, perhaps the style of the typewriter might inspire a person based upon the era that it was made in and its styling. This is kind of a 1960s or 70s styling. That kind of angular, square look. As I said earlier, it's a cast alloy body, has a crinkle paint finish. It is precisely made, every bit as good, I would say, as an Olympia, as a later model like late 60s or 70s Olympia. It has some interesting features. There's two different tab systems. There is a tab system that is every 10 characters, and then there is a universal tab that goes on any, you can set on any of the positions, and there's two different levers. There's one here and one here. A really interesting machine. It has a unique kind of a margin system. Instead of the press down and slide, it's pinched together and slide. Pinch together and slide, but they're really smooth. It has a good quality platen roller. It's fairly large in diameter. I haven't actually tried rolling like postcards through this, but it looks like a kind of a machine that might deal better with thicker paper. It has a nice, precise plastic card guide that's in great shape and a wire support for cards. And so there's a lot of attributes to this machine that are really nice. It has the key set tabulator, as I mentioned, and of course it's a full modern keyboard, American style, with the number 1, exclamation mark, the plus equals, etc. So a great modern machine, probably at the near the pinnacle or the apex of mechanical typewriter design before the influences of economic manufacturing kind of caused typewriter manufacturing to decline in quality. And I'm willing and happy to pass it on to somebody that is going to use it and going to cherish it and will probably get more use out of it than I will, only because I have limited room and only so many typewriters, and all the typewriters in my collection are all functional, and I try to keep them in as good a shape as possible. I don't really have any hanger queens at all. This is one of these machines that deserves a good home. And so my encouragement to you guys out there in a typewriter YouTube land is consider, maybe you've built up a sizable collection of typewriters over the last few months or years. Maybe there's something you're not using, but it's still a really good machine. Consider passing it on to somebody who might get better use out of it, because these machines, in my estimation, deserve not to just be set aside into cabinets and shelves and display cases and ogled and eyed, but they deserve really to be used. They need to be used in order to keep them in good shape. That's what they were built for. They need to have words written on them. Creativity, writing creativity done with these machines. That's what they desire if they were conscious, which, of course, us true typewriter lovers know secretly down deep, yeah, they're conscious. So I spoke earlier about the aesthetics of this machine. The back part of the carriage is all a dark brown, chocolate brown, that kind of matches the whole keyboard style in color. And the paint job is kind of a cream color. So this cream color with brown is a really nice coloration. I put this blue ribbon on a few years ago when I got it. I got kind of fascinated with blue ribbons, but in retrospect, it would have been obvious to put a brown ribbon on this thing, right? Because the blue kind of clashes with the warm earth tones of the machine. I like the modern style carriage knobs. They really look like they're made of high quality polymer. It has the left-hand platinum has a push in for the clutch, for the slip clutch. So the line spacing switch goes between one dot, which is two half clicks, 2 half spaces, and the middle position is 3 half spaces, which is 1.5 space, and 3 dots, which is 4 clicks, which is 2 full spaces. So it's 1, 1.5, and 2 spaces on that selector switch. There is a separate lever behind the line spacing switch that you can use to temporarily disconnect the line space ratcheting, that if you flip it back, you go back to the original ratcheting. And then I was going to show you, there's a little paper support lever that pulls up, and look at that. 2 parallel supports come up in one operation. The one on the right has a little finger that you can grab with your thumbnail and slide it up. Isn't that cool? Well, if you look underneath the machine, it's open underneath the keyboard levers, but there is what looks like a masonite or melamine panel with vent holes underneath the main mechanics of the machine with 4 screws that come out, and that reveals the inside workings. There's 4 rubber feet. All the rubber on this machine feels really good condition. Oh, this was dated to roughly circa 1969 is the best that I could date this at. But considering 1969, this machine is in just immaculate condition. It is so clean and is so good. It has things like, for instance, the space bar, this articulating mechanism. This round rod has felt discs on either end that dampen the impact of the space bar when it reaches the hard stop. And these felt discs are in really good shape, and what you can do is just rotate them. If you get a flat spot in the felt disc, you rotate it a little bit, and you get a brand new piece of felt in contact with a hard stop. So some really cool design that went into this thing. I really appreciate it. Well, I got a spare sheet of paper here. Let's thread this baby in here, shall we? This is a fast typing machine. You can really throw down some words. It has an easy touch. It has a nice typeface. It has a nice alignment, very precise, very Olympia-like in its alignment. I forgot to notice, oh yeah, there is underneath the ribbon cover, just in front of the left ribbon spool, there is a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 position touch adjuster. I have it set to the middle position. And as far as the actual touch, there is a noticeable difference between the lightest and the heaviest setting, so that is good, right? That means that's a good indication that all the linkages and armatures in the machine have been adequately degreased and working properly. So I like to keep it in the middle position. That's my own personal preference. It is different than like a Smith Corona Silent Super. It kind of reminds me more of kind of a cross between, let's say, an Olympia and an Olympia SM something or other, and like an Olivetti Lettera. It has that kind of, there's a slight, I don't know if you call it squishiness, but it's not as firm of a finish to the stroke as you would expect on like a Smith Corona, but boy, is it smooth and easy. And so, you know, it's mixed emotions I have, right? On the one hand, you would like to say that you could have it all and you can keep it all, but the reality is, at least in my case, you can't. You can't have it all, and you can't keep it all. And the best thing to do is pass it on to somebody else, especially if it's something like this that, for whatever reason, I just haven't used much, but it is in pristine, immaculate condition, deserves a good home.
On the heavier setting, it definitely feels more like my SM8, which is almost the same year, I believe. Yeah. Let's see. Currently, working machines that have ribbons in them and everything, I think it's about 4 or 5 at the moment. And I think it's going to be 8 or 9 if you include all the machines that are close to working. Yeah. All the machines I use are portables. Right. I have 2 full-size machines I don't really use. I have them more for just historical value. And I have 1 ultra-portable, which is one that I like using the most at the moment. But I usually always keep a portable out, ready to type on at all times. And this is probably going to become that new primary machine. I have an SM8 with a script typeface that I've been using as my sort of primary machine for a little while, but I just don't like the way it looks as much as this. This is just smoother. You know, 90% of my writing is short correspondence. It's a really great excuse to get away from my computer. I'm a computer engineer by trade, and I spend 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, plus sitting at the computer working. And obviously in this day and age with cell phones and all the digital media, it's such a nice disconnect to sit down, not in front of a screen. And fortunately, I've got a small handful of friends and family who, several of which have typewriters, one of whom I gifted a typewriter, and are also into writing in, like with a fountain pen or that kind of thing. So I think we all have a similar appreciation for that disconnect, and that's a big part of it for me. I'm very grateful that we have the society, just because it's an interesting group of folks to, you know, see once a month and discuss typewriters, which is just, you know, out there. I have to be careful who I tell that I'm into typewriters, because some people just think that's so out of the norm, you know, that you'd actually spend money on something so archaic. But I think for some people it makes a lot of sense, and some people never stopped. Some people have been collecting typewriters for decades, and I'm a newcomer to it, but I've completely fallen in love with it as a hobby.
That's great.
So the society is just great that it exists, because we have this local camaraderie and people we can get together with who have had appreciation for the whole subject.
Right.
I'm not sure what I'd like to see come out of it. I think right now, growing the club, maybe finding a few other folks. I think there are a lot of younger folks like me in their 20s, 30s, 40s that are interested in it or have a machine and don't realize that there's a little popularity for it, you know, in the sense that there's a number of folks in the town who are willing to sit down and actually repair machines and tune them up. And, you know, this is definitely a big piece of the collection for me from, you know, the more that I learn about the, you know, all the machines that are in existence and all the values that I look for in a machine. You know, I'm sort of in general, just with, you know, everything. I like stuff from the 50s and 60s. I like design from this era. I like how sturdy stuff was built. You know, once you start getting into the 70s, there's just so much more plastic everywhere introduced. And it's, you know, the technology is that there is pretty much the same that they'd been using for several decades before that, but it was the best possible, you know, version. Right? You know, this was the smoothest. This is, you know, when, like, for instance, how this has such a glorious carriage slide on it, you know? And it's right before, you know, electric typewriters really became a thing. Some of the facet electric machines that I've seen have been very interesting looking, hefty, big machines. I don't know, I have no idea if they even really exist for the most part in this country.
Well, William, congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Yes, have fun with it, use it, be creative, do a lot of good work on it.
I plan on it. I appreciate it very much.
Sure.
Thanks for the opportunity.
You bet. Well, so it's goodbye Facet 1620. There's no real hard feelings about getting rid of this typewriter, because I know it's going to a good home, another lover of typewriters, and it's going to get used probably more than I would have used it. And so that is the attitude we kind of have to have, I think, in this era, is that we want these machines to be utilized for writing, gently cared for, but not abandoned or ignored. What's best for these machines is that they are gently but continuously used by people who appreciate them and understand how to service them. And that's what I hope this machine goes toward. And so I have nothing but fond wishes for the future of this machine, fond memories of having it and using it. What a great machine it was. What an opportunity to buy it. Walking into a little thrift store, and it's the only typewriter I've ever seen at that thrift store. I've gone back since, because I bought this there, and I thought, well, there should be others. No, there's no other typewriters, just this one. It's almost like it was meant to come home to my house. And that's cool. And now I'm passing it on, and I'm happy about that. So I would encourage you guys, think about, is there a machine in your collection that really deserves a better home? It's a good machine. It's a usable machine, but maybe someone needs it more than you do. Huh? Pass on the joy. Let the typewriter goodness go forth, right? Expand the typosphere. That's a good attitude to have. Well, this is Joe Van Cleve. I encourage you guys, stay creative and have yourselves a great day. Bye-bye for now.